Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And for those of you who are joining us on the web, Assalamu alaikum. Oh, the sound. Let's get that in. Okay. MashaAllah. Thought we had that all in place. But here we go again. Okay, so I start over. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to all of you, those who are here and those who are joining us on the web. I begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen wa salatu wallahi wa salamu ala khatamin nabiyyin wa ala alihi tayyibin tahirin wa ala azwajihi wa mahatil mu'minin wa ala ashabihi wa ajma'in wa ala tabi'in wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsan ila yawmiddin wa alayna ba'ala ibadillahi salihin. Brothers, sisters in Islam, and those who are making i'tikaf, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept from us our deeds during this month, and we ask those who are making i'tikaf to pray on behalf of all of us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make this a blessed month for us, and the remaining days will be days in which we worship Him in the best way possible, in a way that is pleasing to Him, and that He will admit us among those who are saved from the fire of hell during these last few days of Ramadan. Allahumma ja'alna min utaqa'ika min an-nar. For today's lecture, I want to look at the problem of violence committed in the name of Islam. This is a long subject, and it will not all be exhausted in one meeting, but we'll start today inshallah. So one of the issues we need to be aware of is that there is the concept in Islam of fasaad as being something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not like. In fact, the Quran specifically says so. Inna Allah la yuhibbul fasaad. Allah does not like fasaad. He does not like corruption, and He does not like the mufsideen. He does not like those who are sowing corruption. So what is meant here by fasaad? It could be many things, but when there is peace and that peace is upturned, this is fasaad. That is the opposite of things going well. This is chaos, fasaad. If a thing is gone bad, that is fasid. The thing is gone bad, it's fasid. So Allah does not like people to upset the peace and the smooth running of things. Now, all the acts of violence, generally, this is their nature. They upset things. When it comes to war, there might be a war that people justify as being necessary or being unavoidable or something like this. But the Quranic perspective is that war by itself is not something liked by Allah Azza wa Jal. The Quran speaks about war as something that the others are starting and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is putting out. So Allah says, كُلَّمَا أَوْقَدُوا نَارٌ لِلْحَرْبِ أَطْفَأَهَا اللَّهُ. Every time they start the fire of war, Allah puts out that fire. So that somebody else is starting it and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is putting out. That means Allah does not desire for there to be war. He wants the peace to prevail and for there to be no fasad or corruption. So we find in the Quran, right from the beginning in Surah Al-Baqarah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking about those who sow corruption in the land. And when it is said to them, you are causing corruption, they say, no, إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ مُصْلِحُونَ. We are peacemakers. So you can see then that mufsidun and muslihun are used in contrast. The muslihun, those who are trying to make peace, and mufsidun, those who are trying to cause corruption and war. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that the way of the hypocrites, you can see early in Surah Al-Baqarah, the way of the hypocrites is to do what? Is to sow corruption, is to cause fasad. And when it is said to them, be muslihun, they're saying we are muslihun, we are peacemakers. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Ala innahum humul mufsiduna walakin la yash'urun." They are indeed the mufsidun, but they do not feel it. They feel that they might be doing something right. So too it happens with some of our brothers who in many different parts of the world, and sometimes even in Canada, they may feel that they are serving Islam and protecting Muslims and defending Muslims against those who are oppressive towards us, or those who are usurping our countries, or those who are colonizing us, or for whatever reason, in whatever way they justify to themselves, they think that they are serving Islam and the Muslims, but in fact they are upsetting the balance of things. They are causing chaos. They are mufsidun. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not like the mufsidun. Later in Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about people who will call your attention to what is in their hearts. وَيُشْهِدُ اللَّهَ عَلَى مَا فِي قَلْبِهِ, and they will bear witness to Allah about what is in their hearts. وَإِذَا تَوَلَّى سَعَى فِي الْأَرْضِ لِيُفْسِدَ فِيهَا. But when he turns, after all of this, like, oh, Allah knows what is in my heart. After all of this, he will turn, and what he will do? He will make effort in the land to cause corruption in it. To cause corruption. This is the same fasaad. لِيُفْسِدُ فِيهَا. To upset the balance of things, to cause chaos, and so on. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us plainly that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not like the fasaad. He does not like this fasaad. And in many different chapters of the Quran, the same term is used, the same theme is repeated, showing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not like this causing of corruption and war. What does He like on the other hand? On the other hand, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala likes the muslihun, those who sow peace. Sulh khair, the Quran says. Sulh, this is reconciliation and agreement for peace. This, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, is khair. In the 8th chapter of the Quran, Surah Al-Anfal, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling the Muslims to incline towards peace. And this is interesting because the context shows that there are people who you can't really trust them. They might come once to have peace with you, but and you enter into a peace agreement, and they may come when they're weak. That's when they want the peace agreement. But later on, they may come back to attack you. So what do? In this surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that if they incline towards peace, فَجْنَحْ لَهَا, you also should incline towards that peace. وَتَوَكَّلَ عَلَى اللَّهِ, and put your trust in Allah. So this requires for you to put trust in Allah. You can't put your trust in these people because they may come back and cheat you. They may deceive you. But at the moment when they come seeking peace, you should incline towards that peace as well. So because the peace, for as long as it will prevail, it will be of benefit to everybody, to Muslims and to non-Muslims as well. So Allah is telling us to incline towards that peace. In Surah Al-Baqarah, in the 208th ayah, it says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu udkhulu fi silmi kaffa. O you who believe, enter into peace completely. The word here is silm. And when I was much younger, I used to give khutbahs saying that this means enter into Islam completely, because some English translations of the Quran put it this way: enter into Islam completely. But the word here is not Islam, the word is silm, which means peace, and it's related to Islam. Islam in a way also involves the idea of being at peace, peace with ourselves, peace with our Creator, and so on. The root word is the same. From the word salima, which means to be whole, we get the word Islam, which means submission, and we get salam, which means peace. From the same root word, we get the word peace, salam, and we get the word for Islam, which means to be whole or to submit. Salima, to be whole, Islam, to submit. And silm is it's peace. It can mean a peace treaty, musalaha, making reconciliation between people. So this ayah then, it is very clear that it says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who believe, udkhulu fi silmi kaffa, enter into peace completely. It doesn't say enter into Islam completely, though of course it's true, we should enter into Islam completely. And so I've used that verse in the past to say that we should enter into Islam completely. And many preachers before me and continue to use that with the same meaning, enter into Islam completely. And that's nice, it's a good message, enter into Islam completely, not halfway. That message is true. But this ayah is not saying that. This ayah is saying, enter into peace completely. All of you, completely. Now Imam al-Qurtubi rahimahullah is a great scholar of Islam. He's a great mufassir. He's written a massive commentary on the Quran called Al-Jami' li Ahkam al-Quran. He was a Cordovan scholar in those days when Islam was in its heyday in Spain, what is now Spain. And his tafsir is a very good one. I read it and I enjoy, and I learn a lot from his tafsir. But that doesn't mean that our great mufassirin in the past and everything they said is 100% accurate. Nothing anybody but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says is 100% accurate, because Allah is without error, subhanahu. But human beings, sometimes we hit the right point, sometimes we don't. So Imam al-Qurtubi rahimahullah is looking at this verse and he's saying that it cannot be that. It says enter into peace completely, but it cannot mean that. To him, like, it's impossible. How could Allah be telling the Muslims to enter into peace completely? So he's saying it can't mean that. And to satisfy himself that it doesn't mean that, he says nowhere else in the Quran does Allah call on Muslims to enter into peace completely. But see how weak is his argument here. We have to understand this. I'm not saying this to say anything bad about the Mufassir. He's a great scholar. We have to learn from him. But I'm saying this so we can learn from this. So we can know how to evaluate ideas. It's not everything we read in a book is going to be absolutely correct. We have to be critical in our thinking and accept what is right and refuse what is wrong when somebody else is saying it. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying it, we say sami'na wa ata'na. We hear and we obey. But we can't say the same thing about somebody else. We can't put that somebody else in the place of Allah Azza wa Jal. And why it is important too is that recently, when some of the Shabab started up ISIS in the Syria-Iraq region, they justified their program by citing Imam al-Qurtubi and his tafsir. Certain portions and certain things that are said in the tafsir, they use that as their justification. See, we are right. We know the true Islam, and look, Imam al-Qurtubi agrees with us. So now it is necessary for us to go into this tafsir, as with other classical books, and to show our youth in particular, but everyone more generally, we should all understand this, that it's not everything that the scholar said is completely true and correct. Sometimes they hit the point, sometimes they did not. So in this case, Imam al-Qurtubi is saying, look, nowhere else in the Quran does it say that you should enter into peace completely. But see how weak is his argument here, because it's not an argument to say because Allah didn't say it anywhere else, He couldn't be saying it here. Or to put it a different way, how many times does Allah have to tell you something for you to know it's true? If Allah tells you one time, isn't that enough? So once is enough. If Allah tells you only in this verse, enter into peace completely, then that's what you have to do. You can't say, oh, He didn't tell us a second time, so therefore He couldn't be telling us this time. No, you have to see, He's telling you this time. And the words are plain. Enter into peace completely. So that's what we have to do. Enter into peace completely. And in fact, when we look at the entire Quran, we see that the Quran is about peace. It's not about war. It's about entering into peace. It's about living at peace and in harmony with ourselves, with our environment, with the animals around us, with the trees, living at peace with our neighbors, with the entire world. That is what Islam actually is about. And so when we put all of the pieces together, we realize that this is a mistaken view that Imam al-Qurtubi had, based on which he said that the ayah could not mean enter into peace completely. And that same mistaken view is the one that stands behind some translations of the Quran that translate this verse to make it mean enter into Islam completely. Enter into Islam completely we should. True. But that's not what this verse is saying. This verse is requiring us to enter into peace completely. So what I would like to see imams do from now on is to go onto mimbar and with the same force in which we used to say enter into Islam completely, with that same force we have to now say enter into peace completely, because that's what the verse is actually telling us specifically to do. Imam al-Zajjaj is another commentator on the Quran, and he is a grammarian. So he is known for his specialist in grammar, for his specialty in grammar, his specialization in grammar. And in his tafsir of the Quran, called Ma'ani al-Quran wa i'rabuh, the meanings of the Quran and its grammar. Imam al-Zajjaj is very clear in saying that the word as-silm is the same as the word as-salm. It's just a difference between a zabar and a zir, between a fatha and a kasra. With kasra, it's silm. With fatha, it's salm. So he says that both salm and silm is the same word. Some words are like this in Arabic. It makes no difference whether you recite it with a fatha or a kasra. Some other words, it makes a difference. This word doesn't make a difference. So Imam al-Zajjaj is saying this word doesn't make a difference. It's the same word, silm and salm, and it is used 6 times in the Quran altogether. And in each case, it means musalaha, reconciliation, making peace between people. The word, according to him, is very clear. It means as-silm. Enter into peace then, completely, is what this ayah is saying. So then, what we have established for this lecture, and we will have to go with a series of lectures on this, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not like war. If other people start war, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is putting out the fires of the war according to the Quran itself. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is calling on the Muslims to enter into peace completely. Allah is telling us to preserve the smooth running of things. This is peace, this is the opposite of chaos. On the other hand, some people, according to the Quran, will cause chaos. They will cause fasaad. And even when it is pointed out to them that what they're doing is wrong, they will say, no, we are muslihun, we are peacemakers. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّمَا أَلَا إِنَّهُمْ هُمُ الْمُفْسِدُونَ وَلَكِنْ لَا يَشْعُرُونَ. Isn't it the fact that they are indeed the sowers of corruption? They're causing fasaad, but they do not realize it. So Allah is showing that fasaad and sulh are two opposites. The mufsidun, those who are causing corruption, that's opposite from al-muslihun, those who are making peace. So those who are causing war and fighting against people in the name of Islam in many parts of the world, and they're starting up the war, they're doing what the Quran shows it's the non-Muslims' function to do. It's the non-Muslims who should be starting up war, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is putting out the war, the fires of war. So we, for our part, we have to advise our brothers, and we have to understand this ourselves. I am preaching now to people who are, you can say, already converted. That's what they say, preaching to the converted. But my point is not to preach to the converted. Like, what's the purpose of telling you if you already know and you're already peaceful people? The point is that you have to know this information. Like, don't be listening and say, oh yeah, we already know that. Yeah, we are peaceful. We don't want to be in any war. I want you to listen actively to this series of lectures and learn this information so that you can repeat it yourselves. Because others will come to you and say, brother, you should support the war. What's happened? You're not a good Muslim? You're not supporting the Muslim fighters? You should be supporting them because look, they're establishing Islam. So that means something is wrong with you. You have to now have the answer to tell them. Our youth need this answer because there will be recruiters. Recruiters come into the masajid and they will talk to the youth and they will show the youth certain verses of the Quran and certain hadith and convince the youth that they're supposed to go overseas and fight on behalf of this or that cause. And then the youth will be persuaded because, yeah, they're showing Quran and Hadith here. So that means that they have the right Islam and nobody else here seems to have it. And they may get the impression that maybe we are peaceful because we happen to live in Canada and we don't want our citizenship to be revoked or something like this. So we are just like playing it cool and just going along with everything because we're afraid of the authorities. And we're not afraid of Allah Azza wa Jal enough to pick up arms and go and fight. Whereas the correct thing, they will say, is that we're supposed to go and fight. And maybe there is somebody like that. Maybe there is a Muslim who is convinced that we're supposed to go and fight, but we are too weak, we can't really go and fight, so we will just stay and enjoy Canada, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us. Maybe some people are thinking like that. But now I want you to see that the correct way of thinking is that we're not supposed to go and fight against non-Muslims. We're supposed to make peace with them. We have a message that comes right out of the Quran. It's a message for all humankind, which is the main theme under which we have this series of lectures. And people are not going to listen to your message if you go fighting with them. So we want to establish peace so that people can hear the message of Islam. That's what we want. We don't want the land and property and territory of people. We want to save them for Jannah. We want them to say La ilaha illallah and enter paradise to live in peace and harmony and under the love and mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forever. That's what we want. And we ourselves want to go in Jannah as well. And that place is called Darus Salam, the place of peace. Wallahu yad'u ila Darus Salam. That's what the Quran says. Allah is calling towards Dar es Salam, the place of peace. So in this life, we're not here to fight against people. And the explicit message of the Quran is that Muslims have to establish peace and not so corruption. And this is what we're supposed to do. So we want our youth to know that information and be able to deliver that to somebody who comes and tries to recruit them. If parents find their youth are inclined towards going overseas to battle, then most parents, they don't know all of these arguments. They just know that we're supposed to live in peace. And then they will use arguments which are of a materialistic nature from the point of view of the kids. So let's say your teenager comes to you and says, Dad, this is Islam. We got some brothers fighting overseas. They're defending Islam, and it's my duty to go and fight with them. So the father says, no, don't go, you will be killed. The mother will especially say, no, you won't go, you will be killed. So now the child is thinking, so you love the life of this world more than the life hereafter? I should go and get killed. That's the very point. What do you mean? That's not a problem. That's the whole point. So what does the father and mother have to say to this child? They have to say, oh, it's admirable that you want to go and give your life for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. That's admirable. We respect that. It would be, painful to us to lose you. We love you. You are our son. But you want to go give your life for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? That really shows your high iman. But if you want to give your life for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, let's make sure we give it right. What do we have to do now to serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? We can't do something wrong to serve Allah Azza wa Jal. Yes, you have a lot of zeal and enthusiasm. You have, what is it you do? Josh, right? Josh? Josh. You have a lot of Josh. You want to go and do something. You have a zeal. Hamasa. Is it Hamasa bil Arabiya, ya Sheikh? Yeah, you have this enthusiasm to go and serve Islam. That's great, but make sure you do it right, because if you join the wrong group, or if you go and do something wrong to serve Islam, if you die doing the wrong thing, you will end up in the wrong place. My son, I'm concerned about you. I want you to end up in Jannah and live forever in happiness. I don't want you to die in the wrong way. So let's find out and make sure you're serving Islam. Now, is that battle which they're fighting, is that legitimate? Was that started for the right purposes? Is that serving Islam, really? Or is that putting a mark against Islam in the public? Is that helping Muslims, or is it harming Muslims? Let's see now. What does the Quran tell us to do to establish peace? What else does the Quran tell us to do? How can a Muslim youth in Canada serve Islam the best way possible? What I would say to the youth here is that the best way possible you can serve Islam is not to go and die somewhere else for Islam, but to live here for Islam. And what do I mean to live for Islam? Is that if you want to dedicate your lives for Islam, dedicate your lives to a life of learning and serving. First of all, it comes with education. The people with education will have influence in society, and that influence can be used for tremendous good. The people traditionally who have gone to battle in the past are not the intelligentsia of the ummah. It doesn't happen that way. Let's say there is no specialization. You're in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet is the most intelligent man around, right? So he goes and he leads the campaigns. But after him, specialization enters. In the time of the Khulafa al-Rashidin, specialization. By this time now you have developed armies. People who can fight, go and fight. Others do different things. So the young, able-bodied, but often the intelligentsia are staying behind. In every army today, what do you think? The most intelligent people will go in the front lines? No. The most intelligent people will direct the battle. Who will go in the front lines? The less educated ones. They go in the front lines. So I will say to our youth, we need intelligentsia, we need educated people to serve Islam. That is how you can help Islam in the best way possible. So dedicate yourself to a life of study. Go to university, get a degree, get a good job. Serve Islam by giving charity out of the good earnings that you have. Serve Islam by occupying a position of influence from which you can make society better. Not completely better by one person, but you will have some influence and you will change it by some small degree. That will count. And if many Muslims do this, imagine the tremendous accumulated change that will be brought about by all of your actions together. But if you go die in another part of the world, then you are just wasting the whole opportunity to serve Islam in this way. Many years ago I saw a cartoon in which a young Palestinian person is saying, like a Palestinian kid is saying, when I grow up, I want to be a suicide bomber. So the other person hearing this says to him, well, you can't have it both ways. He says, when I grow up, I want to be a suicide bomber. Because you can't have it both ways. Because if you want to be a suicide bomber, you won't grow up. That's the point. You can't grow up and be a suicide bomber, because if you're a suicide bomber you won't grow up. So people have got it wrong. They have a kind of a defeatist mentality. They think we're defeated, we can't do anything. The only thing we can do is an act of desperation. We can do something because we're so desperate. We can't win anything, so let's kill ourselves and kill a few of the enemy at the same time. Then we will feel we've accomplished something for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You have accomplished nothing. Because what does Allah accomplish by getting a few dead non-Muslims or many dead non-Muslims? If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to kill them, He has many ways of killing them. But He doesn't want to kill people. He wants people to be alive and accept His message. And He wants us to give them a chance to hear the message. That is why in Surah At-Tawbah in the 6th verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that if they seek refuge with you, grant them refuge, hatta yasma'a kalam Allah, so that they can hear the words of Allah. That's what Allah wants. He doesn't want to kill them, and He's not telling us to kill them. He's telling us to grant them refuge so that they can hear the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's what we have to do. So brothers and sisters, we will continue with this series of discussions showing that Islam is for peace, and those who are committing acts of violence around the world in the name of Islam are distorting Islam. We have to have this knowledge so that we know how to answer them and how to show them that they are wrong. We need to show the youth that this ideology is wrong, and help the youth to be steered in the right path. I'm so sorry that I didn't leave any time for questions today, but I'll try to make up for that tomorrow inshallah by taking questions. There may be questions from our internet viewers, and we'll try to deal with those tomorrow as well. We're coming close to the time for breaking our fast. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept our fasting and all of our good deeds, and we ask Him to accept from us this humble dua and accept our sitting here before Him today learning about His religion. Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you all for your patient listening.